at least 2 hours. So I'm not going to spend too much time on sort of the format for tonight. The speakers are going to make opening remarks, then I'm going to ask some questions, then they're going to ask each other questions, and then they're going to answer your questions. So 4 weeks ago, we were told by King's College, where we were planning an event with Sargon of Akkad and Yaron Brook, with the King's College Libertarian Society. We were told that we had to move the event from Sunday to a Monday so that it could be monitored by safe space marshals. Yeah, that was our reaction at the time. But then on the day of the event, we were informed that because of threats of protests, only students would be admitted. So almost 300 people who signed up weren't allowed in. And Antifa somehow did make it in, and their disruption ended up stopping the event. Now, since then, journalists and political activists have been banned from the UK for their views, and yesterday one of our panelists was convicted of a hate crime for basically
that's funny.
for words said in a comedy sketch, which it's not funny. I mean, it kind of is, but it's really not. So yeah, the trend of boundaries of what is socially acceptable speech constantly narrowing is scary enough in and of itself, but when government enforces it, it's absolutely terrifying. Now, as the Ayn Rand Center is fighting for a society where the role of government is limited to the prevention of the initiation of force rather than initiating force to silence people for their views, regardless of how grossly offensive they may be deemed. So we're advocating for free speech. We believe that individuals can make up their own mind rather than needing the government to make up our minds for ourselves. So we appreciate that you're all out here to help us support free speech. And now please join me in giving a warm welcome to our speakers tonight, Raka Ali, Sargon of Akkad, the grossly offensive
statements. Hey guys.
Hey.
Wow, what a beautiful audience. Handsome. All right.
Keep going.
Yeah. So I was at the store the other day. No, listen. Thank you, Ayn Rand Center, Razi. Thank you, my fellow panelists. This is really cool. I came here all the way from Los Angeles, and this is a topic near and dear to my heart. And free speech is a right. What that means to me is, or what that means, it's not a privilege. It's not a favor. It's not granted to us. It's not something that we want to preserve because we already have it. It's not something that we enjoy using and therefore deserve to keep. It belongs to us. What a right is a requirement for living. As human beings, we need to think. That is the first thing we need to do in order to live on Earth. That is the ultimate requirement. So to tell somebody they cannot speak freely is to tell them they can't think freely. It's telling them certain ideas are not to be voiced, and therefore it's useless to think. Or if you do think it, you might accidentally say it, and then you're in trouble. It's introducing force into human affairs. So the battle for free speech, it's not just about defending comedians. It's not just about preserving a tradition of sort of liberal democracy. The right to free speech is an essential. It's a requirement. It's not only something that we're sort of entitled to, but it's something we need. I would also say that after the right to think, after we're required to think to live on Earth, we're also required to act. And what that means is to produce, to trade, to own property. So I know we're all here to talk about free speech, but what you're going to hear me say here and there probably, if I had to guess how this is going to go, I'm going to try and make the case that the right to property ought to be as absolute as the right to speak. And if we compromise on one, we will lose both. What do I have, like 3.5 minutes left? All right.
I'm going to jail for a meme. It's literally the greatest thing that I've ever done in my life, and the only thing that I've ever been known for. I shouldn't be famous, man. I'm sorry, man. I was in court yesterday, and I was found guilty of being grossly offensive, and my sentence has been postponed until the 23rd of April, which is St. George's Day, and my judge is English. Yeah, fuck you. But it was in regards to freedom of speech as well, Rucka put it very, very brilliantly that it is a right that we definitely should all have because it encourages the free flow of ideas, but one of the things that's been used to stifle freedom of speech, and it's something that was very evident in my trial, obviously everybody knows that from the get-go my video was to annoy my girlfriend. That's literal fact, that is reality, and I didn't make it with any anti-Semitic intent. The intent was just for the phrase to be considered as outrageous and as part of the comedy. The judge turned around and basically rejected that. It's basically, I reject your reality and substitute with my own. And he turned around and says that I am an anti-Semite and I made the video for anti-Semitic reasons. So I'm quite happy that the judge knows me better than I know myself. And he says that, I mean, mate, I was there, right? I know what I was feeling when I made that video. Right, so I'm proud to say that I'm Britain's first ever court-appointed anti-Semite. Glad their tax money's been put into making that decision for me. But basically, I'm just an internet shitposter, and I'm probably going to be getting a year of my life in prison for making a joke. And if that's not telling you the direction that this country's actually going in, if it can happen to me, it can happen to any other people. And it's the thing that's scary is it's almost Stalinist, where I know the reasons for what I did and I know why I did what I did, and I went to court for them to turn around and go, no, we say why you did what you did. And if that doesn't absolutely terrify everyone, because I'm shitting myself. Man.
We love you, man. We'll send you packages.
I've not really got anything much else to add. I think just everything about my trial just absolutely speaks for itself about how ridiculous everything it's got. And I mean, there are people in this country that are actually in prison for tweets. For fucking tweets. That is enough to get you sent to prison. And I've not really much anything further to add to that. That's just ridiculous in itself, isn't it? But yeah, that's it. Thanks very much.
Another beer?
Yeah.
So I did the boring thing and actually wrote something on the way down here on the train, and now I'm going to read it, and it's going to be really dull, and you're all going to be like, would you just get to the fucking point? But I've actually got to make a case for defending the speech of racists, because I mean, I don't agree that you're a racist or an anti-Semite, obviously, but even if you were, I think you should have the right to speak. So here we go. So, John Stuart Mill defined 3 principles for a free society, and I agree with these entirely. Liberty of conscience, which is the freedom to think as we please. Liberty of tastes and pursuits, which is the freedom to live our lives as we wish without interfering with the rights of others. And the freedom to unite in common cause, to voluntarily associate with one another. Our right to act ends where another's rights begin, which is why the right not to be offended is not only absurd, but pernicious. What causes offence is not only subjective, but changeable depending on the person's mood, inclination, and vindictiveness. When a moral charge is made against our rights, we must be prepared to defend them with our own moral convictions, which is what the right have failed to do. A racist statement against you is not a violation of your rights. You do not have the right not to be offended. Even racists have the right to live in a free society and exercise their free speech, no matter how vile their views. A society that tyrannizes racists is a tyrannical society, even if you happen to agree with what's being done. By being complicit in tyranny, you rob yourself of the moral justification of opposition if and when the racists muster the strength to overthrow your regime. Indeed, you give them just cause to resist your depredations while strengthening their resolve to take power, because you failed in your duty to protect their rights when you had the power to do so. By persecuting racists, we are publicly declaring that we are, in fact, no better than the racists, because they want to persecute others just for different reasons. And since we have justified the persecution of racists for thought crimes, as the Met recently did, in a now altered piece that's gone down the memory hole, although Breitbart did manage to get this before they got rid of it, how far do you go? If racism is to be made a high crime of opinion, where do you stop? Should a racist have a Twitter account, a business, a bank account, a home? So far, the justification for their persecution is, well, they're racists. And that doesn't stop being true at any point. Will we be satisfied only when every racist is homeless and destitute, ruined forever, for the high crime of holding an unpleasant opinion? And if not, why not? Because at the end of the day, you did anything to them on the basis that they're racists, and they still are. These considerations all come before we even arrive at the question, well, what exactly is racism anyway? Because as we've seen from the intersectional left, racism is a malleable concept that can be redefined at a whim and ruthlessly applied as the powers that be desire, with the full-throated backing of craven and cowed politicians, the inquisitorial media, and the bourgeois public opinion. We are not a free society, and the persecution of racists shows us as much.
All you wrote?
Actually, I stopped halfway. So I can keep going if you want.
Well, the first question is for Sargon. It's a bit off topic from where you were. So, if you were the judge in the Prager Google lawsuit, in whose favor would you rule?
Okay, so I haven't actually been following that one particularly closely. I'm actually waiting for the results. But, I mean, can someone give me a quick rundown on what's happening with it?
Yeah, so PragerU is a YouTube channel named after Dennis Prager, the God spokesman on earth, who, the voice of morality. You might remember him from his "There can be no morality without God" meme. And that's all well and lovely. I'm glad he's on YouTube. And like many right-leaning channels, or like many channels in general, they've experienced a high number of demonetizations and flagged for 18 and up, which is probably largely based on sort of malicious bullshit on YouTube's part, if I had to guess. I'm glad they found a good time to vacuum the... Cool. Hope they're folding the napkins too. Anyway, I'll get to the point. I'm getting to the halfway point of this story. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked. Anyway, Prager is suing YouTube / Google. They're suing Google, saying that, I'm not sure exactly what they're saying, but my understanding is they're not suing Google necessarily for fraud. They're not suing them saying that Google lied about anything. They're saying because Google is so big that any point of view should have the same right to express themselves and earn money on YouTube. That's my understanding. He certainly hasn't made the point that that's not what he's about. It seems that because Google is so big that PragerU feels that they have a right. They have a right to make money on their videos just like anyone else. So I guess Sargon, I'll pass it back to you.
That's a wrap-up.
Yeah.
So is this because them videos being demonetized, yeah?
Yeah. Or / flagged for 18 and up. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, okay. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to play judge in this situation, but to be honest with you, Google probably has some sort of provision in their YouTube, agreement, where they can undoubtedly just whip your funding out without any legal consequences. So,
Yeah. Well, I agree. They probably do. I would think their lawyers would make sure they do. But I just, it's just important to me. I know this is we're here about free speech, so we're not necessarily all free market fanatics like me. But if you happen to be a free market guy, if you happen to believe that property rights are important, keep in mind the conservative movement is not your home. Dennis Prager is not your guy, and when push comes to shove, you see what they're really about. A lot of conservatives have pushed for antitrust bullying of big companies like Facebook, like Google, and I know it's fun to watch. Yeah, fuck Facebook. Finally, they're getting a taste of how it feels. All right, but none of these guys can call themselves free market guys. None of these guys can say. I mean, I would even say you're not really for free speech if you don't think Google can decide. And I guess, yeah. Anyway, I'm not. I'll keep it limited to that. But so it sounds like Sargon's saying he would side with Google on this.
Well,
Based on what they're-
again, I'm not really fully involved on the situation,
Yeah.
but it sounds like that Google probably have the case here.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know. I knew you'd be thrilled with that. The defender of billionaires everywhere. Right?
Yeah, hell yeah. Listen, guys. Well, let me make a point right here because I'm a big fan of integration. I like taking unlikely things and piecing them together. When it comes to defending free speech, we need to stick up for the guy with the double zero gauge earrings who taught his pug how to Sieg Heil. Because if we don't stick up for him, first they came for the pugs, and I didn't speak up. You know how it goes. All right, we're all here because it's a right we want to preserve for ourselves as well. So, and even if Dankula was a Nazi, and guys, he's like only 80% Nazi. I asked him before this got, by the way, for the media, we are not Nazis. I know we're all going to be called alt-right.
Rucker, it's too late. I appreciate what you're doing, but it's too late, man.
No, we're not, yeah. We're all vegans, though. We're all proud vegans. Dude, we could make this all go away. If like every anti-SJW becomes a vegan, could they stop fucking vacuuming? Right. Anyway, where was I? All right, so we need to
promoting veganism. Go.
All right, so we need to stick up for the offensive memer and. All right, this is seriously ridiculous. Someone out there.
They're trying to tell you something.
Is this it? By the way, I knew Antifa were losing steam, but they resorted to vacuuming outside the fucking room. Are they sending their moms to troll us now?
Can someone tell Consuela to fuck off?
All right.
Dryer from the toilets.
All right. I'm going to try to make this point again. When it comes to defending free speech, we need to stick up for the most offensive speech, and even if it's not a meme, even if it is. Wow. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. We need to stick up for even if it is, non-ironic Sieg Heiling, even if it is sincerely hateful, we need to stick up for that speech because that's the principle, right? Now, I would say when it comes to property. Yes, I'm the defender of billionaires, just like I'm the defender of the homeless guy's pennies in his pocket. Because if you nationalize somebody's property because he's, quote, earned enough, well, Mr. Corbyn, they're coming for me next.
I think you should nationalize your channel, Rucker.
Hell yeah.
Seriously, Corbyn actually said we should nationalize Uber. It's like, are you insane?
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Defender of Billionaires. Doesn't Uber have too much money already?
Well, that's the point, isn't it? Just because someone's successful doesn't mean you get to just arbitrarily appropriate their property.
I agree. I wish we agreed on that 100% of the time. Hopefully we do. Maybe this is a new day. All right. We're getting along. We're having fun. All right. We're here to talk about free speech. Count Dankula, did you have anything else? Everyone, shut the fuck up. Dankula, any thoughts on the Google case? This is obviously weighing on your mind more than anything these days.
The thing is, I've actually kind of changed my opinion a little bit on YouTube because there was a bit of information that I wasn't actually aware of. You know how the UK government are actually putting a lot of pressure on YouTube to remove a lot of content and ban it in Britain and stuff like that as well. Not in Europe in particular, no, but it was like there was the things that get brought up, like Red Ice TV got brought up and things like that as well. They were basically complaining about alt-right stuff being shown on YouTube, and apparently YouTube defended my video, which I wasn't aware of. They that's why I'm remembering all those tweets I sent to Susan Wojcicki and went, shit. Sorry, Susan. No, but it was like, apparently they turned around and says, even though the joke is tasteless, it's clearly meant in a comedic sense, which means that YouTube has a lot more sense than our own Crown Prosecution Service. But delete that. I've not been sentenced yet, shit. No, but it's like, I don't know. I don't want to say anything bad about YouTube right now.
So if you're watching this from outside of Scotland, what happened was YouTube actually stuck up for Dankula's video. That's the translation. Am I right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And listen, guys, listen, I've had my differences with YouTube, okay? But what's your alternative? To fucking hand it over to fucking Hillary Clinton and or whoever the fuck happens to be in that, whatever megalomaniac happens to be running the fucking government? So you want some fucking bureaucrat? Have you ever dealt with these fucking people? You want them to get to decide what shit you get to post on YouTube? Huh? Is that what you want? I'm looking at you. No, he says. All right.
They already do in this country, man. That's literally what he's on trial for.
Well, listen, guys.
It's not making the video that he's in trouble for. It's actually uploading it.
What do you mean for uploading it?
Literally uploading the video that was declared grossly offensive.
What about the upload makes it illegal versus
It's the act of posting it and sharing it.
And look, Europe has a long history of, or a long non-history of free speech. So a long history of suppressing free speech. So the United States, we have it written down. It's in ink. It says you have free speech. I think in those exact words. And then all across Europe, free speech has always been more of a tradition, more of a vibe, more of kind of like something we're sort of cool with.
What the hell are you talking about?
I mean,
Germany.
From the days of your boy Locke and all these. It's kind of like let's
don't lump us in with the Continentals. Bloody colonial.
Well, I will say this: the suppression of free speech in Europe in post World War II it began, to my knowledge, with saying you may not deny the Holocaust. Yeah. And what happened? People in Europe, they said, well, we don't have any principles. We're fucking Europeans. They said, all right, let those guys go to jail. No, I'm not going to miss them. Then what happens? Flash forward. Today, Holocaust deniers are equivalent to memers, to anyone who's not on board with the SJW left, to anyone who doesn't identify as a feminist. You're a Nazi. You're equivalent of a Holocaust denier. So not only are the Holocaust deniers now being arrested, but people who tweeted something slightly offensive, or someone who posted something on YouTube. So again, we need to stand on principle on this. And
do you want to know something really interesting?
Sure.
It's actually not illegal to deny the Holocaust in this country.
As opposed to like Germany and other countries?
Yeah.
The thing is as well, like the Holocaust in Europe is literally the only ever historical event that is enforced by law. So even when like all the alt-right and even Nazis and stuff like that were saying it never happened, they passed laws to say you're not allowed to deny this, and all that happened was that made them all go, well, that just proves it.
Absolutely.
It's true. It's absolutely true.
Anytime you try to police ideas, you try to tell people what they can and cannot say, you're turning off their mental faculty, and it's not going to lead anywhere positive. So you need to stick up, and or if it's some kind of fucked up furry porn, I wouldn't lose any sleep if certain types of pornographers went to prison. I'd feel safer. But if I don't stick up for their right to free speech, then I won't sleep at night.
Sorry, what pornographers are not making you feel safer?
Were you literally just alluding that we should gas the furries?
Wouldn't it be funny if we all walked out of this panel having changed our opinion? Yeah. All right, well, that's the Google case.
See, I had more jokes there, but I'm genuinely afraid to tell them now.
Free speech.
No, I'm not doing it.
But whether or not they've arrested very many people for denying the Holocaust, that is where it began, the legislation of ideas, the legislation of what you're allowed to say, which is saying what you're allowed to think. And, you know, the sky's the limit. Once you put the government in the business of legislating ideas, you're giving them your right to think. As an individual, this affects you, my European friends.
It's actually even worse than that, because as soon as you start allowing an authority to tell you what you can and cannot think, you find yourself losing the ability to do so. Just because it's not just you, it's everyone. Because then suddenly you can't really reason out why you do anything, because all you're really doing is obeying. And so you're not. If you can't voice a particular idea, no matter how heinous, you can't say, well, I don't believe that, because you don't even know what the alternative is. And so you find yourself just agreeing with the mainstream groupthink and being nipped at along so anyone who goes close to the edge of the stream gets nipped at by like the sheepdog chasing the sheep. And the sheep don't know why they're going that way, they just do anyway. And so by the time you get down the road and you're where we are now and a man's going to jail over jokes, a lot of people don't even know why this is wrong. And it's like...
Absolutely.
This
Majority.
And by the way, the worst thing you can do for Dankula, in my opinion, or one of the worst things, is to defend him on grounds that it was a joke. I mean, yes, mention it was a joke just to protect his character. But the fact that it's a joke is not why why he's innocent.
Yeah.
This is an innocent man because he didn't violate anybody's rights. Okay.
Next question for Dankula. Should government play a role in preventing fake news?
I get the feeling this was posted by a Destiny fan. In regards to the actual fake news itself, it would depend. See if it's something that can be backed by science, then I believe that people should be allowed to actually question it and challenge it. See if it's like fake news itself, I believe that sources and evidence should be posted along with the news. That's something that I don't think that's way too much to ask. Obviously they got the information from somewhere, so why can't they post the sources? It's just that there is a lot of misrepresentation going along the now where it's kind of like, yeah, we know this is what happened, but let's make people think this is why you done it. Like the stupidest fucking one, Trump feeding the fucking carp. That was the most retarded fucking thing that I've ever seen, where he just like empties it out and they made it look like he was being rude. That was one of the most stupid. Why lie about that? Why fucking lie about that? It's such a stupid attempt.
For anyone who didn't know, the Chinese premier, Japanese premier, I think it was, he did the same thing first, and Trump was copying him, and the media just cut out the bits where the Chinese guy did it. So.
Yeah, it's just see stuff like that, where it's a blatant misrepresentation, just as an attempt at character assassination, stuff like that. I think the entire context should be shown. I don't think it's too hard to post sources and facts and information, or just even to say it implied, because a lot of the media don't even say implied or like accusations or anything anymore. I just get flat out called a Nazi.
Oh, I noticed they dropped the word alleged in so many different contexts, where it's really, I mean, the Me Too thing is one of the, I've seen so many sources where they just can, you know, that so-and-so is a rapist. I think you mean an alleged rapist. There is an allegation against them, they haven't been convicted, we haven't had a trial, you know, but anyway, what difference does that make?
And if we allow OJ to be called a murderer, you're going to be called a rapist. You gotta give everyone that same courtesy. But yeah, no, listen. So it sounds like what you're saying, and I picked up some of that with my untrained ear. That if you can make the case that somebody slandered you, that somebody unfairly hurt your life, hurt your livelihood, that has caused damage to your name and to your ability to live peacefully and happily, that there is grounds for either a lawsuit or that they broke the law or something. Yeah, I mean that sounds reasonable, right? Yeah.
Well, in regards to like fake news itself, see if it's something that's been blatantly misrepresented, then I just don't think it's too hard to ask for the news media to post their sources, or if something's an opinion piece, just say it's an opinion piece. And I'm like that as well. Like there was an article that came about me yesterday that just flat out called me a bigot. And everyone as well, and I called the guy out on Twitter and they shit himself because they always fucking do. Right? But it's just like, I was just give me evidence of how I'm a bigot and stuff like that as well. Like I can fucking go down the right slander if I want, but IPSO, who are the Independent Press Standards Organisation, by the way, see if you're ever smeared in the press, Just nothing will happen, but email them for a laugh, right? And just go, these people have clearly broken the rules that you yourself set, right? And then just laugh at all your friends at the response they fucking give you. Honestly, a reporter could literally break into your house and drop kick your wife through the cupboard, and Ipsos still wouldn't fucking do anything. Right? They're beyond fucking useless. But I'm rambling again. Sorry for the couple of pints.
That's all right. It is amazing how the media has become like teams. They become like teams. Like they have a team. They have either in politics or in culture, whatever it is. Like they just say what they want to be true, and that's the news. It really is remarkable. And you see it on pretty much every side. I don't even know where to get news anymore. Shit, I just make it up. But yeah, some people get their news from me. Like they learn history. Kids tell me, like, I took a history test. I learned this shit from your videos. I'm like, bear with me for this next part. It's gonna sound a little bit ridiculous to some of you. Some of you are gonna get a boner for this, but. Next time you hear somebody talk about how reality is an illusion, or that we can't really know, that skepticism is the only absolute, that consciousness is just a rationalization of your intuition, ask yourself why the media doesn't feel that objective reality is important. That's all.
So the question was, should the government police what's fake news or something?
Should the government play any role in
No, it shouldn't be a case of policing what information the public can and cannot have access to. I've made this case before. See, in regards to censorship, there are certain things that I'm fine with being censored if it's in regards to children. I don't mind an age gate being put on certain types of information. Like, for example, like one of the things that I always quote is, for example, everybody's heard of Peppa Pig. Right, it's really, really popular with kids and toddlers and stuff like that. And there was an episode that was teaching you that you shouldn't be afraid of spiders, and spiders are your friends, and you can just walk right up to them. And Australia went, yeah, we can't show that here. So see how stuff being censored or like age gated in a way so that it's to protect children. I'm absolutely fine with that. Certain information being pulled from the public eye would only be information that's like directly, its only purpose is to cause harm. For example, I wouldn't want bomb making recipes to be public knowledge and stuff like that. So see how information that's only purpose is to cause direct harm, or if it's something for like age gated for the sake of children, I'm fine with that being censored. I don't want the government to control what information the news can and cannot say, but if they present information, I'm fine with some governing body saying, well, if you want to say this, you need to post sources. I don't think it's too much to ask to say you can say an opinion and not fact. I don't think that's too much to ask.
Personally, I don't think the government should have any role regulating fake news or not, because
Fucking ask.
I mean, who trusts the government to do such a thing? I mean, and the thing is, we say the government like this is some sort of neutral, objective entity, but it's obviously not. There's a reason why no one can anyone in this room name the judge in his case.
Mills Lane.
Twat.
I meant his real name, but that's close enough.
Please don't.
That's the point, though, because I've spoken to a lot of Americans about this, and this is something really unusual, because in America they're very firm about naming the judge. The judge has to be known, because it's understood that the judge is going to have their own political agenda. But in this country, we treat the judges as if they are neutral representatives of the state, and the state is a neutral, unbiased, politically impartial entity. It's obviously not. And so I don't want, say, a Labour government coming into power having the ability to determine for the public at large what is and isn't fake news. I mean, I don't want the Conservatives having that power anyway, but I just trust them more than I do the Labour Party, but not by much. But no, I think that this is not the government's remit to tell us what is true and what is not true. I mean, the idea that anyone would even think to trust these people with that kind of power is insane to me. It's for the public dialogue, and there's not said the government can't weigh in on that. They can publish their articles, they can put out statements, whatever, But I don't think they should be the ones telling people what they can and can't say on the judgment that they think it's true or false. We'll make our own decision. Thank you.
Yeah. There is something very creepy about a government telling us what is what's true and what may be said in the media. So the way I look at government, their purpose is to protect your rights. if somebody's rights were violated, and that may include lies told about you in the press, and you bring suit to the court, they can look at the evidence and they can say something here was said which is not consistent with reality. But yeah, for the government to just be like full-time arbiters of what's really happening in the world, that's like some Orwellian shit, isn't it? So yeah, I'm with you.
It's full on. That's exactly the problem that Orwell was describing. When the government has a monopoly on information, they have a monopoly on truth, and things literally will go down the memory hole. I mean, we've got a big enough problem with that anyway, with newspaper publications publishing something that's not true and then just slightly changing it on the fly. I mean, Winston Smith had to use an eraser or Tipex or something to do it. Now they just press a button and it was gone like it never happened. There are entire websites that, what is it, News Corrections or something, I think it's called, like dedicated to keeping track of news articles after they've been updated. So you've got a copy of the original, and this is something that the Met Police did recently, where they were suggesting that even, and I'm not making this up, this was something, it was covered by Breitbart and a few other places, but it was not widely covered. They suggested that you could do something that wasn't illegal, but your intent behind it could have been illegal. Now, that is literally a thought crime, and this was picked up by various sort of independent bloggers who are, things like barristers, lawyers, things like that. And eventually the social media shaming got too much that they just changed it. They didn't make a correction, they didn't make an update, it was just gone. But the problem I have really with that is,
I just want to interject and say that that's even more terrifying because apparently, according to my case, the government gets to decide what your intent is.
No. We laugh, but we're literally in this position now, and you are literally at the business end of it. And so, the problem I have is that our police force and government, especially the police force, they've become kind of like predatory for left-wing morality, and I find that really disturbing because they act as if everyone is already on board with, like, basically what social justice warriors are running around the internet saying. They're busy enforcing it and convicting you of thought crimes, suggesting, you might not have actually committed a crime, but the intent behind it is a crime. So I read a blog by a barrister, and this barrister was just like, no, there is no such thing in English law that your intent behind something without any action is criminal. That's just not something that's there. But for some reason, someone at the Met Police, the London Police, decided to write that on their bloody website. I mean, that's the kind of, it just tells you the kind of mindset that these people are operating under. They're looking for witches, and they're going to find them. So,
I think there's a couple of reasons why America's government is not completely on this witch hunt yet. There's two reasons why our government in the U.S. has sort of a leash on them. One of them is that it's written explicitly, the limitations of the government. It's written down, You cannot, silence speech, etc. Another reason is that Americans are not as impacted by our intellectuals as Europeans seem to be. Our intellectuals are as horrendous as they are everywhere. In the academia, the Marxists, the postmodernists, or what have you. They're just as bad in America as they are over here. But Americans seem to still have this sense of life where the ghosts of the founding fathers are still around, and the spirit of the individual seems to live on. And we're not quite yet ready to hand it all over to whatever intellectual trends are pouring out of the ivory tower yet.
So they're doing everything they can, though, aren't they?
They sure are.
California is really going down the hate speech route, and honestly, it's something that genuinely I'm concerned about for the United States in general. You guys have got to be careful.
I'm trying, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
Hey, you live there. You fucking get a march on your state senate house.
I can't. I'm too busy over here meddling in your affairs, trying to protect your guy.
A lot of excuses I'm hearing.
No, I'm sorry. God damn. Talking shit about my country. I didn't come here to be disrespected.
Yeah, we're not in it.
That's my people. No, can you tell me what's going on in California?
Oh,
do you know if you're offended, you can send him to prison? Bonus points for being a Jew. Just saying.
Seriously, there are people being detained under what would constitute effectively hate speech laws, and it's unconstitutional, and it's still going ahead. So,
is it being proposed? What do you mean?
Oh, it's like de facto rather than de jure.
I don't know what you're saying. Is it being people being
yeah,
arrested?
Yeah, people are being detained by cops for saying things on the street that could be considered racist or offensive or whatever.
Really?
Yeah, I saw a live stream of it happen the other day.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What were they saying?
I don't think I can say it in this country. I know that sounds terrible. No, I can't. See, he's going to jail for a joke. I'm not taking the risk. All right?
Okay, well, we need to look into this because if people in America are being arrested for speech, I love this. We got like another show happening, another panel. Are there people being arrested in America for speech that's not inciting violence?
Yeah, they were only
That's
detained.
the
They were detained temporarily, but still, it's the first step.
I mean, cops are dicks sometimes.
Oh, you're making excuses.
No, I'm saying you can run your mouth in the street and the cops say you're disturbing the peace, but whatever. Like,
no. I'm just saying. The thing is, you can tell where it's coming from. It's coming from the far left nature of California, and it's the kind of culture that you're swimming in out there, and it makes the idea of a hate crime a permissible thing to consider, and I'm really tired of it. You know, so just saying things like how disgusting. I just don't think should be a crime. I don't think that should be anyone's business. If you've got a problem with it, you either address it or you walk away, but that's it.
Yeah.
There was a guy that was reading a Churchill speech, this was I think a year ago or so, that got arrested and detained by the police halfway through the speech because it was critical about Muslims or something like that.
Unless that's the voice of Churchill, I don't know.
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
All right, Raka, what should be, where would you draw the line between free speech and incitement?
Incitement of violence?
Yeah.
I mean, where exactly that line is may be a little bit arbitrary. When you get down to the nitty-gritty, was he inciting violence or was he just saying, "I'd like to someday see," you know?
Complicated, surely.
Guys, we're gonna have a Q&A later on. Hold that thought. I want to hear. You know, the line of where incitement crosses over with just expressing ideas could be a little bit hard to finagle, if that's the right word. I just wanted to say finagle. But that's, you know, it's like with any other right. So where do you? What if I trip and fall on your property? Can you then pull out a gun and empty it in my fucking head? It's a stupid question, but that's not a stupid question about where the line is. But yeah, incitement of violence is tantamount to violence. So inciting force, pointing at someone and saying, "Hey guys, let's go kill him," or "You, hey, go kill him now." That's beyond free. That's not free speech anymore. That's causing violence, and that's using force. So yeah. On the topic of violence, although America has not led the way in policing speech yet, although America has pretty much been the one place to explicitly defend free speech through all of this mishigas, America has taken a driver's seat of sort when it comes to not protecting threats to free speech from abroad. So when your boy Solomon Rushdie was first threatened in the late 80s, a fatwa was put on him by the Ayatollah Khomeini. That's in Iran. And so Solomon Rushdie published a book that was offensive to Muslims, and the supreme leader of Iran said, "Bring me his head." And Solomon Rushdie his book was published in America, so he had publishers in the U.S. He had bookstores that were selling his books, and like people blew up the bookstores in California. I think 2 of them in Oakland, the very place where me and Sargon, let's just say, consummated our exchange of ideas in his hotel room a few months ago. The home of the death of free speech in the U.S. That's right. So literally, bombs went off in bookstores or near bookstores in the late 80s or early 90s, carried out in the name of not allowing, Islam to be insulted. This was in America. And what did the U.S. do? Same thing the U.S. does every time we've been called to protect our values. We bent over. George H.W. Bush, the total pussy, he issued some statement saying something like, "We don't condone violence, and we also don't condone insulting people's religions." Are you fucking kidding me? To draw an equivalence between the two, or to even wag your finger at the bookstores or at Solomon Rushdie at a time when we're being literally attacked by foreign aggressors. So that would have been, in my America, that would have been grounds to go to war with Iran, and not a kid glove war. Very, very decisively, make it clear what happens when you send people to bomb American bookstores, because that's how important American lives, and also just as importantly, American rights are. And of course, Solomon Rushdie was not protected here in England, and he's, the government of no Western country wants to protect him. Nobody protects Americans. I know there was the Draw Muhammad contest in Garland, Texas. Of course, private security had to be hired for that. Yeah, I mean, you cannot insult Islam in the West and rely on the government to protect you. That's just the reality.
In many cases, the government's actually the problem. In Britain, religion is a protected characteristic now. So I don't know how we're supposed to be able to criticise these things. This is what Lord Pearson was addressing in the House of Lords the other day. And he was, I can't remember the name of the Baroness who opposed him, and she was just like, no, look, she listed out the protected characteristics and said you're not allowed to incite hate against these things. And said, okay, but how
you can under UK law. I looked it up.
Oh, can you?
Actually, there's a carve-out specifically for
Really?
religion. It's the Racial and Religious Hatred Act 2006, and it introduced a new section into the Public Order Act 1986, section 29, and it specifically looks at section 29J has a specific carve-out for religion, and it says expressly in the statute that you can actually hate and abuse and ridicule religion there. So look that up.
We have people in prison for doing exactly that.
Yeah, but that's exactly my point. That's exactly the problem, like with the Met Police. This is exactly the problem with the Baroness in the House of Lords.
Yes, we've gone beyond the point that we have rule of law at the moment.
Yeah, even though these things may well be written in black and white in the laws, yeah, exactly. They're acting as if they're not. And it's like, okay, well, we have a problem then, don't we? What are we going to do?
They didn't say which religion you're allowed to insult. Look, I mean...
Well, we know which ones you're not...
Right.
One, you're not allowed to insult.
Anyone who asserts themselves to the West, anyone who comes into Western countries and says our culture is superior, the West immediately backs away, because the West has no moral confidence. The West doesn't remember what made it great. It was ideas, it was philosophy, it was the Enlightenment values, it was Aristotle. And the West has no moral confidence whatsoever. The West is multicultural, moral relativist. So the West, America and England and every country in between, most, we stand for nothing. We don't know what we're about. That's why America did nothing when the bookstores were blown up, and that's why France does nothing when Charlie Hebdo gets shot up. And Scotland were too busy throwing their own YouTubers in jail to protect themselves from people that are literally hurting people.
Yeah, did you make the tax argument, Dankula? Were you like, look, this is going to hurt Scotland's tax revenue? You sure this is wise?
Was that an independence joke, you dick?
It wasn't, but it is now.
I'll tell you what, man, I swear to God, see when it comes to Scotland, I just want to go full Donald Trump, build a wall, and you can keep your authoritarian fucking laws.
Yeah.
This is coming for your country, mate.
I know.
It's interesting.
Not letting you get away now, mate.
Yeah. It's like watching Monty Python. I don't understand. It is interesting to watch the way Western countries have developed over the past half century or so, because we don't remember what we're about, so all we can really turn to is balkanization. All we can turn to is ethnicity or tradition or something other than ideas. Because ideas, well, we turn, okay, let's build a wall here, let's keep those guys out, let's make our country smaller and smaller, so pretty soon not only Scotland will be independent, but every street on it will have a representative in the UN. Yes,
seriously, you have a really good point, because it's you say like, oh, in the West we don't stand for anything. It's actually worse than that, because half of the West, approximately, stands for the opponents. I mean, look at Jeremy Corbyn. There isn't an enemy of Britain that he hasn't supported. There isn't a terrorist, there isn't a dictator, there isn't a regime that has been against us that Jeremy Corbyn hasn't been like, you know what, they might have a point though. You know, that death to Britain, maybe death to terrorists. Well, what about the death to Britain part? It's like, no, Jeremy, no. You know, I mean, you are this close for me to brand you a traitor. Do you understand? No, seriously, it's the moral conviction of the right. The Conservatives have lost all of their moral convictions because they've abandoned their principles. And I'm not even a Conservative, but it's infuriating to watch Theresa May go, I'm a feminist. No, you're fucking not, Theresa, you fucking idiot. You have to agree to Marxism for you to be a feminist. It's the most embarrassing thing to watch. The Conservative Prime Minister of Britain say, yes, basically, Karl Marx was right. No, he wasn't, Theresa. There is no gender wage gap. You're an idiot. Let Rees-Mogg take over. Just... He's the one man I've heard in the entire of the British Parliament make a moral argument for liberalism and capitalism. It's like, what is the Conservative Party doing with its time, if not that?
Jacob Rees-Mogg is also literally the only ever member of the Conservative government to actually make Scottish people want to vote Tory.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, he stood up in Parliament the other day and actually gave a 12-minute defence of free speech. Why does that require a backbencher to do? Why isn't Theresa May on the front lines going hammer and tongs at Jeremy Corbyn every time he's like, you know what we should do? Ban this, ban that, ban Freddo's, ban bloody Lucasade, whatever it is he wants to ban tomorrow. Like, I was gonna do a speech on this in Bristol, but it's been cancelled because they're afraid of Antifa. Yeah, I'll rearrange something. But basically, I was just Googling Jeremy Corbyn and the things he's called to have banned over the last 30 years. I stopped after about 3 hours thinking, God, this is going to go on all night, you know. But, yeah, no, it's really annoying that there seems to have been some kind of ideological subversion that has taken place in the Conservative Party. They have agreed to all of their enemies' premises, and they are effectively operating on the same moral standards as socialists, which they shouldn't. So,
What are the standards they should be going by?
classical liberal standards.
Like what?
Like, well, all of them. I mean, like, for Theresa May to sit there and talk about the wage gap and say that she's a feminist, that means she has abandoned all of the premises that anything individualistic, she has completely abandoned. By suggesting that she's a feminist, she's saying, look, I'm the head of the patriarchy. I, Theresa May, am the patriarchy. I, Theresa May, am being oppressed by all the men in the country, and I can't get ahead because I'm a fucking feminist. She's an idiot.
I agree, of course, and nobody loves to make fun and bash the left more than me, but unfortunately what you get with me is a guy who just can't leave it there. So I'm going to ask, what is your alternative?
I actually think Jacob Rees-Mogg is the best alternative because he's the best
person.
Yeah, well, but it's what he stands for. It's what he's actually saying. He's actually suggesting we return to the Enlightenment values that made the West great. He makes moral arguments for capitalism. He makes moral arguments for free speech. He will actually defend all of these things, and that's what we need. And he is like the avatar of Britishness, because at the moment, you can't take a photo of Jeremy Corbyn without a communist flag being somewhere in the background. Mogg is the opposite of that. You can't take a photo of him without a British flag being somewhere in the background. And I'm thinking, right, okay, in a symbolic way, which one of these am I going to pick, just off the cusp, you know? But yeah, there's been like a 30-year campaign against the idea of a British identity, and not just like the overall British identity, but then drilling down to like Scottish, English, Irish, Welsh identities. And what I love about Mogg, he's unapologetically, aristocratically English. And normally, and you see the press go at him all day, every day for this. It's the first insult out of their mouths is class warfare. And it's like, of course it is, you fucking commies. But Mogg is not the sort of person who tries to shy away from that, and that's one of his strengths. It's really strange to hear one of the most aristocratic men in Britain sitting there arguing that we should listen to the working class electorate. When did the Labour Party last say that? When did they say, oh, maybe the working man has a point, maybe we need to start listening? No, they're too busy calling him a fucking racist. You know, no, I'm done with the Labour Party, I'm done with the left. They are absolute cancer.
So the alternative...
IRL, Jeremy Corbyn.
Well, everyone everyone looks like Jeremy Corbyn from where I'm standing. Okay. So the alternative.
That does tell us a lot, though.
The alternative to calling the working class racist is to give them a bigger lobby voice and to grant them favors. Is that the alternative? What do you mean to listen to them?
Yeah, I think we should go socialist.
I mean,
Obviously not.
well, I mean, you can make fun of what I'm implying, but what are you saying when you say listen to the working class? What happened to individualism from a second ago?
Yeah, but I mean, these are all still individuals. There are just a
Yeah.
lot of them that are having problems.
The
For example,
proletariats and the capitalists.
the first thing is the mass immigration. I think is the most important issue for the working class.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is that
Oh,
for,
yeah.
for the enlightened England, the individualistic Enlightenment
Yeah,
traditions?
yeah,
Closing the borders is the most.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right.
Borders have to exist in a world with
Well,
nation
they
states.
exist, but to be closed off and locked.
No, but the thing is, if you allow mass immigration, there are loads of other problems that come along with that. I mean, like, the numbers themselves, it doesn't even matter where the people are coming from, the numbers themselves are a problem. Because of supply and demand. You know, everyone's wages go down. There are studies that the Bank of England has done that prove this. You know, I think really you're talking from an idealistic, ideological position.
Coming from a country that was, everyone flocked to through the 19th century and assimilated in droves in the 20th
and when you've got a
century as
country
well.
the size of America, that's perfectly feasible.
Well, they all were condensed in mostly big cities.
Well, a lot of them, but you've got a lot of cities that spread out across
And
a
they
huge
assimilated.
area.
They assimilated
Yeah, but
everywhere. There's no
dude,
Germans
look
still
at the
speaking
property
German.
sizes. Look at the size of your houses compared to ours.
It's because we've embraced individualism.
No, it's because you have lots of space.
Oh my God! See what I told you? This guy, compared to me, you are Jeremy Corbyn. You can't understand the cause and effect of capitalism. You were just saying, if only a politician that supports capitalism.
Go live in Luton. Go live
Oh
in
my!
Luton.
I'll live anywhere
No, you won't.
I'll live anywhere where there's freedom, where individual freedom, where we don't explain prosperity by saying it's because they have more space to spread.
Yeah, I know, but the point is, man, there are real world consequences that come with open borders.
Okay.
We just can't.
Where's the toilet and can I get another beer?
Jesus Christ! I can't wait to get locked up. Oh. All right. All right. He'll be right.